So we're still going to talk about number patterns, but this time they don't give us a chart, they give us a rule. Last time we were adding 50 cents or adding 40 cents or adding $2.50 or $7.50, and we figured that out. This time they give us the rule and we have to figure out how to set it up. So the question 1 here says use the rule add to. So here's the rule. And when it says sequence, this is an action word that I need to figure out. Vocabulary word, sequence. Sequence just means in order. So it's a list in order. A list in order. If you don't know what a math vocabulary word is, then you need to figure it out before you can move on. Don't just ignore it, because that means you probably don't understand the problem. So use the rule add to write a sequence of numbers, starting with 0. So 0, add 2. Add 2 more. Add 2 more. So this is all we are doing. You need to have at least 5. That's what we're going to say. So that's all it's asking you to do. So our next rule, use the rule add 2 to write another sequence starting with 0. So add 8. Add 8. So all I'm doing is do my 8 times tables. That's the rule. I added 8. Describe the pattern of the terms. Well, what's a term? A term is each set of numbers. So 0 is a term, 8 is a term, 16 is a term, 24 is a term, 32. So I know, describe the patterns. So the pattern would be skip counting by 2s. So the first is skip counting by 2s. The first was skip counting by 2s, or the multiples of 2. Or I could say they are even. Okay, so if that was my pattern for my first set, what can you say about the pattern of the second? So the second are the multiples of what? Multiples of 8. Let's go back to the question. Let me wait just a minute. These are skip counting by 8s or multiples of 8, and they are even too. The first set was even, that one was even. Let me go back to the question. Describe the patterns of the terms in each sequence. Did I describe the patterns? Yes, check, I did that one. How do the terms in the two sequences compare? So I have to compare them. So I have to look at one versus the other. They're both 0. Now this one's 2 and this one's 8. How do they compare? This is 6 more than that one. This is 12 more than that one. So I have to look at how they compare. So I'm looking at one versus the other. If I'm looking at the first term, I have to compare it to the first term. It wouldn't be fair for me to compare this one to this term. I have to be equal in what I'm comparing. So now that I've talked about this, does anybody notice a pattern? What is the same? I can't figure out the difference between them. Difference means subtraction. So what can I find instead? What is the quotient, or what's the divisor? Or what's the quotient between them? What do I do every time? What's the factor? So I could say the second is how many times more than the first? How many times more? What am I going to do to each one to get down here? I hope that some of you are already saying this out loud and you've noticed what it takes to get from here to here. The second is 4 times. So I looked at the patterns going this way. That's what I did here. Then I compared the patterns going this way. So make a list of ordered pairs using the corresponding. Corresponding is what goes with, what matches. So which numbers match each other? The first terms, the second term, so ordered pair. I'm looking for ordered pairs. And I said there was going to be 5 of them because I told you to write 5 numbers. So the first ordered pair is 0, 0. The numbers that go with each other. 2, 8. So when I'm talking about writing an ordered pair, I'm looking at the first list compared to the second list. So these are going to be the X's. These are going to be the Y's. So 4, 16, 6, 24. Where am I getting these? 4 goes with 16, 6 goes with 24, 8 goes with 32. So I start off with a rule. I looked at my patterns. Now I made ordered pairs. What's the relationship between each X and Y? So I could say this is a repeat of what I just figured out up here. So the Y is 4 times the X coordinate. I can spell that correctly because it is right in front of me. This Y is 4 times this one. It works every single time. So it says use the graph paper to do your ordered pairs. So here's my graph paper. So I'm going to put my X's down here, my Y's up here. So how am I going to label this graph? It didn't tell me any information. It didn't put it into a context. It just gave me some numbers. So I have to plot these points. So I have to go all the way up to 32. This one I only have to go to 8. So I'm going to choose to make my bottom numbers go by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But my Y's going up the side, I have to go all the way up to 32. So I'm going to choose to count by 2's. Remember, I am numbering my lines. 0's at the corner. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Let's go ahead and keep counting yours. Pause the video if you need to catch up. I always like to go further than what it says. What are the ordered pairs? 0, 0. It was, I didn't have a 1, so I'm going to go over to 2. 2, 8. My next one was 4, 16. 4, 16. 6, 24, 8, 32. Again, I don't have a straight edge. I'm going to use a piece of paper. So pause the video if you needed to get caught up on your numbers. A clue, if yours do not line up in a straight line, you've done something wrong. Erase your points and see where you made your mistake, whether it was your numbering. Extend your line as far as it will go. So, question 6, use the graph paper to graph them. I did it. All right, so I'm going to move to question 7. So follow the steps to complete this table. Create 2 number sequences using the given rule. Begin each sequence with 0. I have to make 2 number sequences, and I'm beginning with 0. So that means 0, 0. Make a list of ordered pairs. Subtract the X and the Y. Subtract the X and Y. I have to make my ordered pairs. All right, so add 2. 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm doing the same thing with a rule. This time I'm adding 6, 12, 18, 24. I have to set this up as an ordered pair. All I'm going to do is use this and this to write it in an ordered pair. So this is what people who analyze data, they do this and they show it visually. So all I did was follow the rule. I created my table and then I used these numbers to make an ordered pair. It says I have to find the difference. Let's go back and look at the difference. Subtract the x value from the y value. So I have to take 0 away from 0. I have to take 2 away from 6. I have to take 4 away from 12. I have to take 6 away from 18. I have to take 8 away from 24. So, describe the patterns of the terms in each sequence. This one I'm adding 2. So all I'm doing is looking for patterns. I'm looking for patterns. So how do the two terms compare? What do you do from here to get to here every time? What did you do? When I subtracted, I got different amounts. So for the rest of this page, I want you to spend some time thinking about what your patterns are. So tomorrow when I check your information, I'm looking to see what you can figure out from the patterns. So it tells you to graph it. That's your last step. So it tells you to graph it, but I'm looking for your patterns. So tomorrow when I check your work, I should see a graph and I should see answers about what your patterns are. So patterns, there's not a right or a wrong answer. There are right answers, but there's a lot of correct answers that you could be noticing the patterns. So let me recap. So we used rules. We learned that a sequence is a list that's in a certain order. They have to go in a certain order. We're looking at the patterns with the numbers. They can go this way or they can be compared. So we know how to turn them into an ordered pair. We just use one column and the other column. We turn them into an ordered pair. We know how to graph them, and we look how they relate. Sometimes we're adding, sometimes we're subtracting, and sometimes we're multiplying or dividing. So tomorrow I expect that this is finished and that you've done your graph that goes with it.